folks. Tonight I'm going to read The Bean-Stalk by Edna St. Vincent Millay from her 1921 volume, 2nd April. I had originally recorded this video on my PC, which theoretically has better equipment, but that didn't so much work out for various technical reasons. So let's do this again. The Bean-Stalk by Edna St. Vincent Millay. Ho, giant, this is I. I have built me a beanstalk into your sky. La, but it's lovely up so high. This is how I came. I put here my knee, there my foot, up and up from shoot to shoot, and the blessed beanstalk thinning like the mischief all the time, till it took me rocking, spinning in a dizzy sunny circle, making angles with the root, far and out above the cackle of the city I was born in, till the little dirty city in the light so sheer and sunny shone as dazzling, bright and pretty as the money that you find in a dream of finding money. What a wind! What a morning! Till the tiny, shiny city, when I shot a glance below, shaken with a giddy laughter, sick and blissfully afraid, was a dewdrop on a blade, and a pair of moments after was the whirling guess I made. And the wind was like a whip, cracking past my icy ears, and my hair stood out behind, and my eyes were full of tears, wide open and cold, more tears than they could hold. The wind was blowing so, and my teeth were in a row, dry and grinning, and I felt my foot slip, and I scratched the wind and whined, and I clutched the stalk and jabbered, with my eyes shut blind. What a wind! Whew, what a wind! Your broad sky, giant, is the shelf of a cupboard. I make beanstalks. I'm a builder, like yourself, but beanstalks is my trade. Couldn't make a shelf. Don't know how they're made. Now, a beanstalk is more pliant. Ah, what a climb. All right, that was The Beanstalk from 2nd April. So this poem was originally published in May 1920 in volume 16, issue number 2 of Poetry Magazine. And yes, that's the same poetry magazine that's still around today. It prides itself on being the oldest monthly devoted to verse in the English-speaking language. English-speaking world, sorry. The link to the poem in the description will actually take you to its website, in fact. Millay would publish a number of poems in this incarnation of Poetry Magazine under the editorial hand of Harriet Monroe, who was editor of Poetry Magazine from 1912 to 1920. So this was right at the end of her reign of terror, you might say. Actually, I know nothing about Harriet Monroe. She might have been lovely. Millay was 28 when this was published and living in Greenwich Village with her sister. This time in her life, and this year in particular, is famous for her tempestuous affairs with both men and women. In particular, there were at least 3 literary personages who she was recorded to have been involved with during 1920. So, given her busy schedule, perhaps it's somewhat surprising that she also found it within her power to write what seems here to be a children's verse. Obviously, the reference in this poem is to the classic fairy tale Jack and the Beanstalk, and the poem itself doesn't seem to subvert or expand the story much beyond that source. It does make interesting use of sort of this lower class tradesman's tone in the last paragraph in lines like, "Beanstalks is my trade." Most notably, it has a sing-song, almost nursery rhyme aspect to it, which really does nothing to relieve the impression that this was written for a younger audience. There are actually several Millay poems that give the impression of being written for younger readers, either intentionally or not. In fact, in 1929, she'd release a volume called Poems Selected for Young People. Most of the poems in it are ones found in other volumes. As I mentioned when I read the poem Journey a few videos ago, that poem is reprinted there, as an example. However, at least one poem, From a Very Little Sphinx, she wrote expressly for that book, and that's a poem in multiple parts. This book is illustrated in a whimsical and sometimes phallic manner by J. Paget Fredericks, who would work with Millay many times over the course of her career. You can view some of the artwork from that volume at the Brain Pickings article that I'm going to link in the description below. It's an interesting read. I'd actually contest their assertion that Millay never wrote explicitly for young people, for the reason I just mentioned. I actually can't recall specifically if the Bean-Stalk appeared in poems selected for young people, as I seem to have lost my copy, and I can't find a table of contents online. I'd venture a guess that it probably did, since it contained most of the poems out of 2nd April. To be quite honest, this isn't one of my favorite Millay poems. I don't get the emotional jolt from it that I get from a lot of Millay poems. I'm really only including it here in the interest of completeness. And on that note, I'll leave you for the evening. Apologies if this has seemed a little rushed or haphazard. Things have been strange. But either way, this has been your semi-daily dose of Millay, and have a good night.